Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Noah and I wanted to welcome all of you to another installment of Monologue Monday here on my YouTube channel.
Monologue Monday.
If you're a returning viewer to this series, thank you so much for tuning back in, and as always, I hope you can take something away from this video as well. With all of that being said, let's get into this installment of Monologue Monday. So for this episode of Monologue Monday, I wanted to discuss something that I recently came across within the news stream, right? I don't look at news too often, but some of these headlines do definitely catch my eye. So the article that I came across, as the title suggests, is the implementation or the planning of a bonus that the South Korean government is essentially going to pay newlyweds to get married. And this premium or bonus amount comes to the tune of about 38 or 40,000 US dollars. Now, I've talked about this in other videos, but I think the point kind of remains the same. There is a shift in population dynamics that has been oncoming for maybe the last 5 or 10 years in many, many different countries. And this shift, of course, is that we just aren't having as many kids as we used to, right? So the population may be increasing in certain areas, decreasing, obviously, in some, an extreme example being Japan, obviously, but it's stagnated, right? It's not as fast as it used to be. And this, of course, is problematic. Well, it depends on how you look at it, but as far as governments are looking at it, they're looking at it as a shrinking working population, right? So governments or countries, pardon me, do well based off of how many people they have in the workforce, right? How many products they're shipping across the country, shipping across the world, and you need people to do that, right? You need people having kids so when they're done with their job, those kids can take over. And obviously, this is something that the South Korean government has kind of taken interest into, to the point where they're looking to give people quite a bit of money, right? The US dollar is obviously the world currency, and it's obviously stronger than whatever they use in South Korea. So 40,000 US dollars goes quite a long ways if you're living in South Korea. So at this point, the government is obviously, kind of trying to take initiative with this population issue that they're having as well, and really trying to incentivize people to get married. It doesn't even necessarily say that, at least to my knowledge, that you need to have a kid. That might be in the underwriting of the initiative that they're trying to put in place, but to my knowledge, it's just paying people to get married in the first place, probably banking on the fact that, once they're married and they have this money, they're gonna have a kid, right? They're going to try to conceive. So now I wanted to share my thoughts as to why it came to this in the first place, right? Why countries such as South Korea, in this example, are paying people a decent sum of money to get married, right? And like I said, I don't know if the kids are tied to this agreement where you don't get the money until you have your first kid or something like that. But the point being, countries are are making initiatives to really, really try to get people to have kids. So the question becomes is, why has it come to this, right? Why are we getting to the point where governments need to incentivize with money or bonuses or something like that just to do something that is relatively normal, right? Having a kid is kind of kids is kind of a part of the general life cycle, or I think it was at least part of the general life cycle some time ago. I think there's multiple things going on, and I've kind of touched on these in other videos as well, but I think the biggest thing for me is that economies across the world, including powerhouses like the United States here, do not favor the majority to successfully have kids. And there's probably a lot of different opinions on this, but from my perspective, I like to look at the entire population as a whole rather than 20% or people living in certain states or people in certain occupations to judge the standing, the economic standing of the entire country. So I like to look at like median incomes and so on. And from my understanding of how money works, the median income here in the United States for a couple, right, for a household, is not enough to successfully, it's up for debate, right? These are my own personal opinions, like I said, but are not enough to productively have a kid, I should say. Obviously, people make do, and that's something that is kind of essential, right? You're gonna, if you have a kid, accident or not, you got to try to make do, right, with whatever income you have. But at least in my personal opinion, I should say, it's not conducive to being able to provide them with a lot of opportunities to do this, to succeed, to ensure that you're taking care of your own health, their health, that they're in a safe environment, that they obviously they don't necessarily need to be spoiled, but the cost of living just across the board is very, very high, pretty much all around the world, and especially here in the United States. So definitely, I think that the current situation with the majority of individuals here in the United States is not favorable to really have a kid. It's not incentivizing to have a kid. Generally, if you've got money, you're probably going to take on this endeavor, right? Because things get easier with money. And I think the same goes for the situation in South Korea too, where their economy is probably relatively similar, where living is so expensive that, having a kid with everybody's median income just doesn't seem like a good investment, right? It doesn't seem like a good use of their money when they could be spending it on other things in life. And that, of course, leads me to my next point, which is what type of world, what type of dynamic do we have compared to 50 years ago? And the simple answer to this is that there is so much more out there, I think. Even it was maybe once hidden at some point, but there is so much exposure to everything, all of the different experiences that you can have within the world, all of the places you can be, all of the things that you can do. And that this, of course, has been expedited and initiated with social media and the internet and so on. But people are exposed to this, right? People are exposed to all of the different things that you can do in life, and they're left with a choice, right? Because money is finite for the most part for for the majority of individuals in the world. They have a choice of either maybe going on this endeavor of having a family, because we all know that having a family is the biggest expense, right? Having a house, having a kid, putting them through school, putting them through college, having food, that's going to be the biggest expense that people have. Or do you take your money, the money that you're making, and do other things with it? Do you travel with it, right? Do you try to take on endeavors? Do you buy things, right, that you want to use to make yourself happy and so on? So I think people are at a crossroads, right? And obviously within the last some years, it's kind of telling what route they're taking, right? It kind of tells, it's telling on what people's priorities are. And maybe, and I'm not, I haven't talked to everybody in the world about this, but maybe people want to generally pursue personal endeavors over familial ones, right? Maybe people want to do more for themselves and experience more for themselves, or maybe with just a significant other, than they want to provide another body to the economy, right? I think it's a very interesting topic. Certainly not enough time for this episode of Monologue Monday, but a perfect example of this is that I recently read another piece of news where John Cena, the wrestler, right, You Can't See Me, basically came out and said that he wants to pursue other endeavors in life, personal endeavors. He wants to take the world for what it is and get the most out of it rather than having a family. And this is something that I think is pretty telling because of how much money he actually has, right? He could have a kid, surrogate, no stress on his wife, and then, basically have a sitter. And, like I said, things become easier when you have a lot of financial backing, and certainly John Cena does. But even then, he is saying that he wants to pursue other things, right? Look at the world in a different way and take the most out of it. So I think that's pretty telling just in itself. But there you go. Those are a few of my thoughts on the article of paying people to get married in South Korea, and how I think it's important to actually look at the underlying reasons as to why the government might be doing this in the first place. But of course, I want to hear from you guys as well. What do you think of my thoughts on this topic? Do you agree or do you disagree? Please let me know in the comment section below. I would love to hear your thoughts. As always, if you've stuck along this far in the video, I want to thank you so much for your time. And as always, happy financing.